Hey everybody, it's Matt. Welcome to another episode of What You Doing podcast, where I talk to cool people about the amazing things that they're creating. Zine Month is finally here. At the time that I'm recording this, we are in the first week of Zine Month, and there's already so many amazing projects, so many amazing things. People are making such amazing stuff, y'all. I'm very excited I've been able to chat with some people so far about their Zine Month works, and I've got a couple more coming out before the end of the month. Today I'm talking with Lola Johnson about their game, Universe at Your Door, The Traveler, a solo and more space journaling game about what we take with us and what we leave behind. It was an absolute treat talking with Lola. I imagine you will pick that up through the course of the interview, but let's get to it. Okay, so
yes,
I'm only a little bit older. I always feel like on the internet, I'd say this all the time.
Everyone
like
is so young.
I'm internet old. Like I'm not old myself, but I'm old as a person on the internet. Because I'll be like, yeah, do you remember this? And they're like, no. And I'm like, right, because you're a child. Like, because you're 13 years younger than I am.
I'm a kind of petty that reads the entirety of Twilight in like a day and a bit to get money off someone that I hate.
Spite's a good reason to do anything. I've said this for years. Spite's a good reason. If you need a reason and all you have is spite, get on it.
Yeah.
That's all you need. Especially, listen, I'll do a lot of things for $20. So,
right?
If I can make $20 and prove you wrong, that's a win. That's exactly. I'm winning. I'm winning all over.
Exactly. Right? Like that was the thing. It's like, oh, okay, you're challenging me to the thing. And of course, because it was so quick, like they didn't have them all in the library. So I went and bought them and then took them back because it was the next day.
Perfect. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And so my favorite, like when you have to take stuff back way too quick for something like that is you're just like, yeah, it was a gift. They already had it. You never get any questions.
Oh, I didn't even. Like I decided I didn't want them.
Some people I was just talking to my wife about this. Some people get weird when you try to return something. They get really nosy and invade. And I'm always just like, it's not your money. Don't worry about it. They're not going to dock you this one. You're fine. Just scan the thing. It's great. Like, make sure it's not a scam. Sure, do what you got to do. But here's my receipt. Have a nice day.
Yeah. But like, the thing is, there weren't even questions because it was the next day. It was like, oh, okay.
Right there at opening with your bag. Like, here we go. Come on.
Yep. Because I wasn't going to actively spend money. She was only going to give me like 20, you know?
Yeah.
And it's because she was like, oh, I bet you can't. And I will question you about it because you don't read as fast as you keep saying. You know?
No, let's go.
And I'm like,
let's go.
So then she was asking me questions because she was reading it at the same time, but obviously she was like, I don't know, second book or something. Anyway, so she was asking me questions, like really granular questions, and I was answering them, and I'm like, yeah.
I'd say, this is a dangerous game. I'll spoil it for you. You're only on the second one? I read the third. What's up?
Yeah. Exactly.
You want to know what happens? I'll tell you right now. You can...
I used to be such a petty bitch. I'm still probably... there are probably things that will bring that, like, pettiness back, but that requires energy. So
right. you have to pick your battles. You have to decide, is this one worth it? Is this one worth it?
Right? Like, and also there is no reason for me to be around that kind of person anymore.
Right.
You know, I am self-employed. I work from home. Like, who am I gonna see?
I do love like, this is the like we're saying, there's the benefit of being just the slightest bit older, where it's just like, I don't have to be around people like that anymore. I just don't need to. I can just not. It's fine.
Right.
And especially not having to work in an office. Know my business.
They don't need.
Right. Like what? Don't listen. Don't worry about it. Nothing to do with you.
Gives that a very like evil look. But up here, it's a little bit less thing. But I can't find anything to bounce this off for my face. That's
straight into it.
Yeah.
I'm gonna do this interview completely blinded, so just stick with me. again, if someone came in and was like, I'm gonna do this interview with this light blasting me in the face, I'd be like, listen, whatever you got to do to get out of bed in the morning. I'm not here to,
I look tired, but I always look tired, so this. Right, yes. Sorry for being ridiculous. Let's kick it up.
Please don't be sorry. It's totally fine. Trying to, like I said, trying to keep it as casual as it needs to be, because I imagine, specifically the people that I'm trying to talk to with this are people who are like working on projects actively or launching crowdfunding of some kind. And so it's like, hi, let me talk to you during the most stressful time, or one of the most stressful times of your life. Let's just,
yeah.
Why don't you just carve out 2 hours to talk to me about this thing really quick? And
I mean, that's exactly why they want to talk to you. Why most people are like, yes, because I need people to hear about this. And also, this gets me away from sitting down in front of the computer and working on the thing until my eyes blur. So,
I do think that distance is a bit of why people enjoy doing it, because they get to talk about it instead of think about it. And I know, you were saying like, yeah, you just, get in your own head about like, what's the right thing? Is this the best? What is this the best? And it's like, yeah, what if instead of doing that, we could just talk about takeaway for, 45 minutes. That sounds good.
Yeah.
That sounds like a good time. Hey everybody, welcome to the What You Doing podcast, where I talk to cool people about the amazing things they create. I'm here with Lola Johnson. Say hi.
Hi.
I'm talking with Lola today about Universe at Your Door Traveler, their new game coming to Kickstarter as part of Zine Quest, Zine Month. I've been talking to a lot of people about Zine Month stuff lately, and it's all been very exciting.
I am both terrified and also very excited.
I am. There it is.
I mean, I'm sending another baby into the world. I don't know. Like, something that I've worked on for a while.
Yeah, I've heard people describe it that way. I think it's a thing with any creative endeavor of like, it's the end, right? The end, I think, is the hardest part, because it's the part that you have to separate it from yourself, and you have to it is done, and then you have to, it has to leave you, and that's why I think it's the hardest part.
Yeah, I think it's the base game has been around for a little while. I've then built on top of it with group rules and done some more editing of the initial, just to tidy it up and everything else before it went into layout. And now we're like, oh, okay. This way, I'm pushing it out to so many more people. I'm like, oh god, what if they hate it? What if they hate it? What if no one likes it? What if no one wants it? Right? I think it's that constant thing of the imposter syndrome of being like, I made a thing. And I think I was talking to somebody else about this. But it's that like, oh, what do you mean people know of my games? People have heard of them before, or people have played them. And enough to leave a comment and tell me what they thought of it? Wild.
What do you mean?
Wild.
Who are you?
No, it's less who are you? It's more, who am I? How do you know who I am?
You bought my game? How did you get here? Who told you about this?
I don't talk about my stuff because I'm terrified. No, I'm joking.
That is the funniest way to deal with an imposter syndrome, is just like, no, I just never post about my games. I put them on there and I just never tell anyone.
That is kind of a thing, right? I have too much of that. And so Zine Quest last year was the first time I did it with the tower. That was kind of my way of being like, I've been holding on to this forever, and let's get it out there, because I'm much better about talking about stuff for a big thing, as opposed to, I just published this. I just did this. Like, it's just there. I'll talk about it like a couple of times, maybe.
It is, yeah, and that is, I think, the great one of the great kind of initiatives with, or one of the great benefits of initiatives like Zine Month, Zine Quest is like you have an excuse to talk about it. You have a great reason to talk about it, and you have a great sort of easy rallying point to, you know, to be like, yeah, here's all of the projects. Here's everyone talking about all of their stuff. And what's great is a lot of the people that I'm speaking to about this, or I've seen talk about it on socials, this is not their first one. You know, they've done one or two previously and they're excited to do more, or this is their first thing ever. And they're, you know, there seems to be very little in between of like, yeah, I've made a game and I'm excited to do a Zine Month. It's just like, no, this is my first thing ever. And I'm just doing it now and here.
When are you talking to the people that are doing as like the next one? Is it more of a like, oh, in between or like after, or because I'm at this point I'm like, why, I'm never doing this again. Ask me after. Ask me next year. I'll be like, yeah, I can do this again.
I think that's the problem. I think it's that way that like people will have a child and be like, I'm never doing that again, and then 2 years later be like, you know. And I think that's the problem. I think people do Zine Month, or, you know, Zine Quest, whatever, and they do it and they're like, oh my God, I can't believe that was ridiculous. And then a year goes by and it's like October or November and people start talking about it and they're like, you know, that was a lot of fun, and all of the bad stuff has been blocked from my memory by time. So I could do another one. I could do one of these by February.
Yeah.
So we talked just immediately right through. So Lola, if you would do a quick intro of yourself, your games, and University Tour Traveler.
Wait, I have to talk about me? No, I'm joking.
We can talk about other people. We could have like a third person. We could have like a third party interview.
Hi, I'm Lola. My pronouns are they, them. And yeah, I write games. I like to write games that explore a lot of challenging themes and really encourage people to do some introspection or build together with other people, because I want to have people work through challenging themes and different aspects of life within different settings as a way of helping people envision what comes after, like envision kind of worlds and build those kind of worlds within game to then bring it back to the real world, like, and radicalize people through playing and building those kind of worlds and seeing what we have here and now in the differences from what they've created with that like hopeful future that is built on, this is all the things you are carrying for the world that we have and what you wish for. And yeah, like radicalize people to push for change with that so you can make a difference. And yeah, that's basically why I write games. And I get to, when I'm doing big things like this, I get to give money to other people to make really cool shit. So
I do. Everybody loves that part of it. Everybody loves the ability to give money to their friends or other cool people to do stuff. I know that's one of my favorite things with streaming and content creation and stuff, is to be like, hey, my artist friends, give me some art for this, please. Thank you.
Because I'm like constantly looking at that work and being like, oh my God, it's so good. I want this. And also I want more people to see it. And I want... But also I think there's something... I've said this again more than once, but like, I love collaborative projects. I love building stuff with people. And so getting to have lots of people contributing to the thing before it goes out to others is very much like it makes it so much cooler, and it's really interesting to see other people's interpretations of things and how much better they can make it.
Well, it's like you said, it's your games are about people coming together to build you know, to build a better world, and in essence that's what you're doing with the game, is you're coming together and you're working together on a project to try to make something better.
Yeah, I try and embody that, like, with the way that I work. Yeah.
Excuse me. University Your Door Traveler, how does that game sort of embody your ethos with game design? Like how does that reflect building a better world and radicalize people through play?
So, University Your Door the Traveler is directly inspired by Becky Chambers' book To Be Taught If Fortunate, which is a group of essentially astronauts that are traveling out beyond our solar system to visit extrasolar planets and research and interact and put that knowledge together to send home. The foundation of that being that community came together, people across the world came together to build something, to fund these projects, to go out into space. So it wasn't a corporate endeavor, it wasn't a government endeavor, which is a thing that I think is very interesting, because understanding how we explore space now and the way we articulate, it's very much like, okay, well, you've got corporate billionaires who, if you check out a different game I've written called Runaway to Mars, which is all about stealing their spaceships, it's you've got corporate interests and them going into space, or and creating waste, as well as taking over sacred spaces and essentially increasing the impact of colonization on different communities, right? So you've got corporate interests that way, and then from governments you have it's basically the military, astronauts out in space is all military applications, and it's very much seen as going out and colonizing other planets, right? Instead of working to better ours. Right, and in doing so, we suffer the effects here, right? With space debris falling, the effect on the ozone, the way it impacts communities, and all that stuff. So with University Your Door and To Be Taught If Fortunate, it's very much like it's the people coming together, and they're funding it not for the purpose of going to exploit space, but to learn and be able to apply those things on a kind of wider level, right? And it's both about looking out and learning, and very much the words "to be taught if fortunate" were very much like going out into space and learning, right? Seeing what you could learn. And the whole idea of setting that back. So with University Your Door, you're going out with that in mind. Your project was community funded. You went out with a mission that was given to you by the people. And you are using your area of research to look at and create new worlds. And when I say create new worlds, you, the player, are creating new worlds, whilst your character is going to them to learn about them, and as a key thing, doing no harm. So approaching planets and experiencing them for what they are, whilst acknowledging that you are changing to be able to step onto this planet and do the least harm or no harm possible. So you're not going with the mind of colonizing these planets. You are experiencing them as they are, the life on them, the way the ecosystems interplay with each other, and your body changes through a process called somaforming, which is something that Becky Chambers coined, which is essentially adapting to the environment of that place, so that you can, breathe the air, or adjust to the amount of light it gets, so that you can live there, or live there as long as you need to study it,
right?
And then go on your ship and move on. Like, you don't stay and necessarily put down roots in these places, because that in itself is colonizing a place. It's very much encouraging people to experience things without having to own them in that way. And in owning it, changing it, and damaging the thing that you loved in the first place.
I'm not familiar with this book series, so I'm gonna have to check this out.
Yeah, Becky Chambers is a fantastic. Well, I really like her books. They're very solar punk kind of, and kind of hope punk, as well as kind of not necessarily cozy sci-fi, but very intertwined in the lives of the people that make up the characters of the story. It's less overarching plot themes and very grounded. The Wayfarer series is very popular. To Be Taught If Fortunate is just a little novella.
I'll check her out. It sounds cool. I'm getting into using Storygraph now, so I'm just adding everything that sounds cool on there, and I'm like, I'll figure it out. Listen, I'll just have a list full of cool stuff. That's a great problem to have.
Well, the TBR forever grows.
What I find interesting about, you're talking about, going to a place and discovering and learning without owning it. I find the concept of soma forming and changing really interesting, because it's a direct inversion of that, right? Is you're not going and seeing the environment and changing it just by existing. You are changing to meet its needs. You are changing to exist inside of that. And I think even if it's just, something as simple as a narrative contrivance that comes up once, that it's just like, yeah, do whatever. I just think it's a great detail to bring up, that like, yeah, through this, you're not inherently affecting these environments. You're seeing these environments as they are. You're not ruining them by your very presence. Because the bit that I know about space, which is not very much, space gets weird, and we are not adapted to live in most of space.
No.
Most of space is not chill with all of this.
No. We are definitely planetary stuck people. But, well, yeah. So I guess one of the stories that we've told with the University of Door is very much a story of the crew leaving. This was a group game, which actually will be coming out, or has already come out, called Humility and Hope. And the crew is venturing out into space to do the same, research, interact, but the information they're sending home is very much looking at different planets and how they work, maybe how different societies and civilizations and everything else worked there on different planets, and how to survive in different spaces, what knowledge could be kind of gleaned from these places and sent back and applied at home. And so in that way, the things happening at home are telling the story of climate change several years in the future that is out of hand. And, well, I say out of hand. We're there, right, but we're several years in the future of that. And so the world is changing into something that would be completely unrecognizable to the people who have left, but also people are adaptable, right? People are adaptable. People are working to stay, not just stay, but also make themselves adapt to that. So applying the lessons and learning that they already have, if they can soma-form people to go out there, maybe they can change themselves to fit here. And also, I guess the biggest there's so many spoilers for this. So, I'm like, if you're interested in this, please go watch it and like watch loads of it before you come back to this. But it's that time passes differently because on Earth we follow a very linear time, but when you're traveling in space to be able to reach extrasolar planets that are light years away from Earth, you need to basically be suspended, essentially. So you go into torpor, which is, in this case, a state of suspended animation that slows down the rate of aging and the rate of everything going on in your body to like maybe a tenth of Earth years passing. So you are not experiencing those years whilst your body is kept in this way and changing. So your life is basically lived when you get into the orbit of whichever planet you're going down to, and on the planet when you're doing your research and investigating that. And so that could have been, you could have spent 4 years traveling. So that's just 4 years for Earth. Or you could have spent 20 years traveling. So that's 20 years for Earth. But the time you spend on the planet may be 5 years and another 5 years. So for you, only 10 years and maybe and change has affected your body. And you've only lived, like actively lived 10 years of it. But Earth has already lived 34, 40, you know?
And
so it's well past. And the way that communication happens is very different as well. So,
and that, you know, I think we're used to sci-fi that has like big numbers in those sorts of examples where it's like, oh yeah, it's been, you know, 2 years for you and it's been, you know, 500 for Earth. And it's like, oh, that's such a big number. 34 years, you know, 40 years is still a very long time.
It is.
You know, especially for something that's more focused.
That you've never met. Like if your family had a child as you, like if people you've left behind had a child as you were leaving or were about to, that is a whole person that you haven't met. It's probably the age that you left at. You know?
And I think those numbers being that much smaller makes that connection much stronger. Like you said, like, like, you know, it could have, like you left and there was a baby and then now there's a 40-something-year-old person. It's like, that's much more impactful than just like, it's been 200 years and everything is different. Oh, you know.
Yeah.
I like that connection in that way. You know, that number being smaller makes it feel stronger.
The idea of the game is very much to keep each person connected to what they left behind. So the game has different sections that focus on different prompts. You have Worlds Explored, which is very much that. You're going to a new world and you are going and visiting the different places and researching whilst on it, trying to understand it. And each of the prompts basically talks about those different... basically talks about how you do that, what different things you've learned about on this planet, like who or what lives there, including like flora, fauna, and microorganisms. What did you accomplish for your mission? What did you learn in general, or the planet, like building the planetary features. Whilst then you've got like Light Years with You, which is another one which very much is talking about that time and distance, and that's actually where you calculate the time and distance and figuring out how you keep yourself together, like who is keeping you together, the things and the people, and the kind of a very particular prompt that I love is the beautiful mundanity that keeps you sane, which is very much the little things that we experience in life, or it's that I've got to get up and have my morning coffee kind of thing.
Right. Yeah. It's don't talk to me till I've had my coffee. It's the ritualism of it. Yeah.
Like all of those little bits that are like, okay, this is grounding me in life here. And the last section of prompts, there's one which is about mementos and like your favorite parts of each world. And the last one, which was Memories from Home, which is very much about tapping into that connection. And regardless of how many years passed, the things that brought you to this point and building out the character that you've created that is living most of their life and will live the rest of their lives out in space, probably. And just adding more flavor to their background, to what they left behind, and like stitching those connections together, because who did you leave behind? Like create each person that you left behind, what they meant to you, like some of the things that they said to you, as well as like you're thinking about a place that was pivotal to your development, or basically something that made you who you are. And I think that particular set of prompts works to essentially encourage you to go, okay, this is what my character is leaving behind. And so as the years pass, you're like, this is what you're getting more and more distant to, and knowing that that place may not be the same. So there is a lot of playing with the idea of wonder and amazement and creation within the game, as well as acknowledging like the feelings of grief and loss, and balancing those, because you do leave things behind, right? And you lose things, but there are things that you can still keep with you and internalize, and through you and that thought you can kind of keep them alive, very much, whilst acknowledging that time passes and it is okay to let things go and carry on building for the future.
Yeah, gosh, I like this. I love. Hey, hi, it's Matt. I'm talking to you, the audience. I'm glad y'all like this, because this is fun just for me. This is just for me. This is just hearing people talk about their games is so fun. So I hope y'all are having a good time. But it you know, cycling back to, I think that's why the years being so short are so impactful, right? Because if it was like, we're going to shoot you off to a planet that's 200 light years away, you're never going to see anyone you've ever met. The world's going to be completely different. You're never going to, and you would only have to deal with that grief the once, you know, and you would, and it would probably suck a lot, but you'd only have to do it the once, and then you would move on, and then you would just do your mission. It being 4, 5, 6 stops of, oh, it's been 10 years. Oh, it's been 7 years. Oh, it's been 15 years. Like, it's every time is it's not as bad, but it's a little bit every time. And like you said, you're living your life on the planet, and then you're immediately going back and going back into stasis or whatever. So then, you know, you're not existing during those times. So you come out of stasis, you would be immediately hit with it. You know, the excitement of, oh, there's a new planet. Oh my God. Well, how long has it been?
I think in itself, it is a little bit of a discussion on grief as well, because it's I think in the actual play that we did with Humanity and Pope, there is and this is part of the optional group rules, you have dispatches from Earth, which is basically messages and packets that have got sent to the crew from Earth so that they know what's happening. When you step out when you're playing it as a solo journaling game, I think it's less immediate in that way, and because it only comes up when you come back to that prompt, and that's shuffled in. So it could come up at any time, but it may not always come up like just before for every planet.
Right.
But I think that's also a bit of a conversation about how grief touches us all, because I think actually in my playthrough of this, I was I was talking about one of the things that I wasn't, the feature that I keep the same, which is my hair. And I was thinking over the prompt, and I was hit personally by a wave of grief because it reminded me of all the family members that had played a role or had interacted with my hair, like did my hair, like sitting between the knees of my great aunt, doing my hair, and her going, you have so much hair, but you're so tender-headed, kind of thing. And we lost her, God, like nearly 10 years ago now. And it's that kind of being brought back to it by that little like tidbit. Mm-hmm. And that was for me personally, but the way the game is doing that is kind of you're thinking back to this fictional one that you've created. And it's very much like this is just one random thing that you thought of that is reconnecting you to that place. And it's in those random little bits of time or the silliest things or the most random things that reconnect you to the past or the people. And I think that that in itself is a little bit of a discussion on grief, mm-hmm. because grief is something never actually goes away. It just becomes less overwhelmingly in your face. It doesn't, like, it shrinks a little, but that it will occasionally, like a little ping pong ball, just press that button of, there it is, kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, it's an interesting like you said, discussion to go along with everything else. I think especially in a group play setting, I could definitely see, especially with like getting dispatches from Earth, I think that's such a fun idea of balancing those sort of maybe like, personal moments of grief, those personal character moments with sort of a more hopeful or positive feeling of like, look at what we've been able to do, look at what we've been able to change. And that it sounds like a nice balance that you could strike, especially for multiple people. You know, it's taking those moments personally when you're playing solo is one thing. And it would be very, very, I don't want to say awkward. Awkward isn't the right word, but it would be weird to just be like, okay, I'm here playing with my 5 friends. I'm just going to be bummed for a little bit if everybody wants to just give me a couple minutes to just be bummed.
Yeah, no. So the way it is navigated within the group rules is slightly different. So you're co-creating a lot and role-playing a lot of these things. So some of the prompts in the section are, even for the group rules, are kind of individual because everyone will have, or maybe there might be some shared ones depending on what your character's relationships are with each other. But like the places that birthed you, that might be very specific to a character. And so you're kind of telling each other a little bit more about the character so that when you get to the other prompts and you're role-playing together, if there are more interactions, that gives everyone else more of a view of your character, whilst if you're going to be playing, if your prompt that you've got for that section is someone you left behind, the encouragement is to role-play that person. So you play your character and someone else in your group will role-play that. And instead of ascribing like this, saying this is the scene that we will act out, what you do is ascribe a mood to it. And then you role play in that way. So it happens a lot more organically. And also you get to build part of this character's backstory together. So you're not alone in the, okay, this connection, this person that I'm leaving behind, right? You're not coming up with yourself and therefore getting stuck in your head. You're very much connecting with somebody there in person as part of the group.
Right. You're like, okay, I want to have a scene and you're going to role play my sister. And, I want the scene to be hopeful, but tense and, just like slightly melancholic and go have a good time.
Yeah. Exactly. And I think the big thing with you only ascribing a mood to it is very much like, we don't control other people's reactions. We don't know what other people are thinking. So instead of you putting yourself in that other character or that other person to tell everyone about them, it's more of a, you are co-creating that space together.
And it keeps people engaged, which is a thing. I think, maybe this is a bigger problem with more traditional RPGs, but I think that it's difficult to keep everyone engaged with things that are happening. And so having people take over other characters, especially for moments like that, I think is great because, like you said, it's you're co-creating, you're just as involved as all the other players.
Yeah, exactly. It's collaborative storytelling.
So what made you decide to set this game in space? Were you like, I want to make a space game? And just like, let's make a space game. Here we go. Or like, this is such a basic ass question, but like, did this come about like mechanics first, narrative first? Were you like, I want to make a game about exploring and we'll figure out how we get there?
So I was a big fan of Becky Chambers' books. I read To Be Taught If Fortunate, and I've read it a couple of times. And it just kind of sat in my head. And I was like, I love this. And I love that view of space and the way that we're changing ourselves to fit into spaces, because that is something that is a really important message for now, rather than like going and making spaces fit us, or there's a lot to be said about our history and like the history of us all over the world and how different peoples have come to different places and imposed change, right? Rather than learning and celebrating that. So I think there's a lot there to be said, and that's one of the things that really captured me, and I wanted to really run with that idea, but I didn't have any kind of framework for it until I actually saw Anna Landon's version of this, because I didn't know about the Powered by Sentinel Jam until I saw Anna Landon's game being posted on the Twitter. The Twitter of old.
It's got an E on the end of it, as all old things do.
So I saw that, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. That's a really beautiful game. Anna Landon makes beautiful games, so everyone should definitely check them out. But it was seeing that game and then going and looking at the SRD and going, oh no, now I have a framework to build this game and have it talk about all of the things that percolated in my brain and the way that like we approach space travel, because I've always been very both grounded in making things and creating things, but also very much in like, who doesn't look up and go, the stars are amazing. Like, we're far away from them, but they still have such a beautiful they still play such a role in our lives in terms of being able to see them, being able to experiencing them here. And also, I'm a big sci-fi nerd. The sci-fi and fantasy, like, I love it all. So most of my things are incorporated around science fiction and fantasy.
I think even if you don't appreciate, like, even if you're not like a big sci-fi space person, like, this is one of those sentences that I feel like is really silly to say out loud, but it's very true. Like stars are incredibly important. Like for travel, navigation, however many cultures have used them for any number of purposes for all of civilization. And so I'm always curious with the ways when people do a game that's set in space or about space. Because what I found 9 times out of 10 is it is using space and distance and exploration and discovery to reflect on humanity. It's like, oh yeah, this planet's so weird. How does it, you only have to watch like 3 episodes of Star Trek before you get to one that they're like, man, this culture's so weird with the way that they separate these 2 groups by this, undefinable strange quality, right? And you're just like, wait a minute. Hang on. I'm no critic, but I think they're saying something here.
I think so often, it's very much a case of the way that we study space, with the way that we study planets now, is very much rooted in our understanding of our planet, right? And we putting that on other planets. So it's absolutely the same when you go out there and like talk about different things. We're gonna relate it back home and so on. So yeah, Star Trek. Yes, it's very much going, imagine all these things, try not to get bogged down in what we have here, but the things you imagine, bring them back.
Yeah, and it's an interesting angle to it, because I feel like so few things I've seen about space exploration are about like bettering society, like bettering the self, like Star Trek as the example is like, yeah, our civilization kicks ass. Let's go find other people and see if they kick ass. And maybe also bring them into our group, our civilization. We can become a political body together. And I think so few of the sort of through lines in sci-fi are like, look at these people. Wow, they got it figured out. We should do that. That's cool. This is great. And like when you were describing the game, like you were like, yeah, if you meet like the creatures and people that live there. And I was like, I didn't even think about the fact that like there could be a civilization. Like I was just like, yeah, if there's like acid seas or stuff like that. And then you're like, what if there's people? And I was like, oh fuck, what if there's people?
It's one of the many things that you can obviously imagine or create for your world. That what if there are peoples, and what if they don't look like you? Like they will have been way more adapted for this planet that they were born on than we were. And so what does that look like? Right? And I guess my encouragement, and not necessarily within the game, is to step outside of the, oh no, people are bipedal, or like the animals we have on our planet, and get weird.
Yeah, get weird with it.
But also think about like what have you created of this planet? What kind of peoples or creatures might live here based on that? Like if it's all rock and there is no water in sight, what does that mean for it? What does the fact that the wavelength of light that you get here mean for the way that plants look, if there are plants? What does it mean for the way that life develops? Does it develop all on above ground if it's a particularly arid climate? How does it adapt to that? What is it made of? Like what kind of what has life developed from? In a lot of ways. Yeah.
This is the fun science stuff of really getting into it and just getting
so you could do it from a very sciencey perspective, or you could go, I'll pick one thing and then I will think about what that might mean. Very much talking to a friend that was playing it and going, I think that like I want to explore this kind of planet, and I'm like, okay, but if it has a bit less, what does that mean for how you might change? Maybe you have really big nostrils and a lot more nose hair, because if it's very dusty or whatever, your the hairs in your nose are are little filters, right? Essentially, to try and filter stuff out. So maybe you have much bigger, because you need to take in a lot more air to get the to get what you need from it. But because it's very dusty or whatever there is in the air, you also need to filter it a lot more. So maybe you have a lot more nose hairs in terms of changing yourself, like getting weird in how you might have changed. But thinking, okay, but what if something's adapted to this planet? Do they breathe in the same way we do at all?
Right, because it makes sense for, we have a human shape, this is what we have, how would our shape adapt to this, versus this is a thing that existed in this space the whole time. They wouldn't, unlikely, evolve a huge nose with a bunch of nose hairs. They would have something that's much more, maybe elegant isn't the right word, but effective.
Maybe they breathe through their skin. Like maybe all of the hairs on their body is a filter, and maybe it's absorbed that way, right? Maybe they don't have noses because the entire bit, and maybe they don't have skin in the same way. Like, is it that bit? Like, it's. I think it's a very interesting. It's very interesting to imagine, and I could go down a billion different rabbit holes of talking about imagining different things, and I think I love encouraging people to create as well. So it's very much like, do a bit of that and do a bit of this and explore this and
I like that though. It's been very fun talking with people and seeing the different ways that they approach their games, and you can tell that it might not be a thing that they've considered, but the different goals that they like, the different things they want people to do during the game and the different things they want people to take away from them, I think is interesting to see the breadth of games, to see the breadth of just play as a concept. I think people, I mean, even me not that long ago, they have an idea of what games are, and then they see a couple more games, see a couple more, and they're like, okay, and then this is it. And then you see another, and you're like, okay, I didn't know you could do this. I didn't know this was a thing. Like, I feel like the first person that was like that, the first person to play Dread was just like, what do you mean? I do what? With the block? And then, and so you just have those moments all the time. And
I felt that this is a couple of years ago, but absolutely about keepsake games. I was like, this is the thing? You can do this?
Wait a minute.
I'm like, what? Now I want to make every game again. I'm like, because a lot of my background is in creating, I've always been doing design. Like, one of my main things I do is I make pretty yarn and design knitting patterns and things like that. And as well as also having computer science sitting there at the same time, it's very much like encouraging people to make things that hang around, right? Or to repurpose something in service of something else that you keep. I think that's really it speaks to a lot of things that I do, and I'm like, oh, I want to make that is a thing that I will make in future. I definitely want to make more games that you have as keepsakes, and I think leaning into that a little bit is the logs that you create through this game, because you have something to hang around with you after this, especially in the group version if you include the epistolary phase, because then you get to put together this log from all of you that is focusing on what you learnt on the world you created and what speaks to your research area. So you're putting all of this together as a this is the story of this planet that you visited. This is what you learnt, this is what you put together, and this is what you are sending to others with hope that it helps them understand and kind of step into these places with you almost.
Yeah, it came up in a previous interview. I was talking about the part of the joy of playing these sorts of games is is the impermanence, is that you're creating a thing that only kind of exists now in the discussion that you're having in the creation. There's something beautiful in the impermanence and the joy of just creating together for the sake of creating. But then also in the same interview, we were talking about it's a card altering game, and I'm like the joy of a physical artifact that like it's a thing that was a thing and is now a different thing because of the act of the game, the act of play. And it brings it. It's silly to say it brings it a step closer to art, but I think it brings it closer to a shareable artifact, right? You can be like, like, oh, look at the, look, like, oh, what is it? Like, okay, so I made this as part of this game, and I think it's very interesting to see people play with physical objects as part of games. I'm we're starting to see some games that do stuff with that. There's card altering and, or you just even end a game and there's a pile of index cards on the table that are arranged in a certain format.
It reminds me of one of my favorite games, The Quiet Year.
Yes, yeah, The Quiet Year is great. Or like, Beak, Feather, and Bone, where you end up with a map, or any number of map drawing games. Just you end the game with some sort of artifact of the play. That I think is just it's an exciting thing that I think is exciting because it doesn't happen all the time. It doesn't happen for every game. Not every game does it. A pile of character sheets doesn't hit the same way as like here's the continent that we came up with, or the town map, or the whatever that we made as part of this game. Like it's the dichotomy of things that make them all so exciting. Which I talk about that a lot because like I love talking about different games. Like if we just played the same 3 games, it'd be horrendous. The joy is in the variance.
I think I think it's really interesting as well because speaking specifically about letters, it's when a game asks you to write a letter to someone in character. And then you go back and look at it and you're like, oh, that was because sometimes when you're in character, especially depending on the mood of the game, it could be very much like
I love
goodness.
I love the games
this
have made me
designed to break that other person or at least that other character in character. Because I played The Time We Have with a friend.
Oh, that's the zombie game, right?
Yeah.
I forget the name of that. I love that game and I can't put the name. Oh my God, that game is ruinous, but in a way that they intended it to be. Like that game is like, oh my God, it's incredible.
I think I probably have a little bit of a thing that games are designed to break me in that vibe of like, oh.
I love that games have made me learn what the word epistolary is. Like, and not, like I knew it at some point, I'm sure someone told me, but then it's like, no, I know what that word is now. I know what that word means. I know. I've played multiple games that have epistolary phases and it's a big part of it. So the Kickstarter for this is, so this we talked about this a little bit at the beginning. This is not a new game. This is sort of a new version of the game, kind of an expanded version of, I don't want to call it a complete version. That feels weird.
Is anything ever complete?
Well, yeah, like that. I feel like if you call this a complete version, you're saying something about the version that existed before and the idea that you could never revisit it. So, but one of the things that you're going through for this Kickstarter is getting a new art, new cover, new layout, and stuff. One thing I'm increasingly interested in is people's thoughts and opinions on art as it exists in a game, because I think this is a conversation that came up on Blue Sky. I saw a person that I follow who is an artist that does artists for games, and I think there's an interesting conversation to be had around the art that exists in a game when the art is not necessarily the purpose, right? Like the game is the purpose. And so the art existing in the game isn't superfluous, right? But I'm also like thinking of a lot of conversations and things that I've heard people talk about with like the growth of AI and using AI generated images in games, which obviously yuck. But you know, a common refrain is like, hey, like you can put out a game without art. You don't need to have it if this is the thing. But then I think just there's a lot of conversations and thoughts around that. And so I'm curious, with the fact that you're coming back to this as a way to improve the artwork, improve the layout, improve all of this, like what are your kind of goals with putting art in your game? Like when you put art into the game, what is your, you know, do you have any guidelines? Do you have any specific things of like, I want to have this many pieces of art. I want this many types, that sort of thing. I'm one of those open-ended questions of like art. I don't know.
It varies game to game, really. It's very much what is the game saying? What is it asking you to do? And how can art help you connect with that? Right? Is a lot of the things that I think about, but also a lot of the time give my games to people and or artists, and I'm like, come back with something. Right?
I don't know.
As in, like, how does this speak to you? Right? Or so the layout for this game was very much giving Nala J. Wu the text of the game and a kind of, this is a sci-fi game and this is the thing and this is what spoke to them. And so the layout is very much a like, yeah, we are keeping this vibe and then we are also making it more like grounding the vibe in something, so the visuals within it enhance that. And that's what I generally think that art does within games, or at least it should do. It should fit within that theme and draw you in more to the game. It gives your mind more places to expand on or like dream about within the framework of the game. And I think that's what art does in a game. But also, and I guess I'm not, I have a mind's eye. So I tend to visualize and envision things like pretty clearly. No, so so that I don't have a problem with that. So I think that a lot of times art in games help people that do have like that need that kind of visual connection to something, be able to say, okay, yes, and then be able to build off that. So I think that is a lot of the work. That art does in games, and yeah, and I don't think games need art, and it is one of those things that it's like, oh, but beautiful things are more enticing,
right?
Or things that, which I think is a lot about. It says a lot about how we view things and what we're willing to give a chance. And yes, it does say sometimes about the amount of effort put into something, or the amount of money that one has to put things together, right? But and therefore, if a game has a lot of art, we tend to read that as, oh, this is something that someone invested a lot in, and therefore, like, it's worth more because of that, rather than just the text. So I think it's a very interesting discussion, but I also don't think that a lot of people need games to have art. Because if you can envision it and you can build from the text, then you don't necessarily need the art there. And I also don't think that not having art in the thing that you put out should be a barrier. And it can also be shitty art. Like when I'm doing them, they're kind of shitty. The original version of the layout for this, I thought I did. No, I didn't think I did something. It was.
I can't even lie. I didn't.
Yeah, it was the best that I could do at the time.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's it. That's all you can say. That's all you can do.
This was released in the solo journaling version that was as part of the Powered by Sentinel Jam was released in 2023. And so I was like, oh yeah, no, I'm envisioning this. And I also did a bunch of sketches for what I really wanted it to look like that I did not have the skills to put together. Or like what I wanted to embody as part of the for the game. And so that didn't happen then. And whilst this isn't exactly what I envisioned then, this is so much better. Because someone else has brought their vision to it and gone, yeah, no, this is what grounds it for me. And it's beautiful. I love it.
Sometimes
but I think
no, go ahead.
The most important part is that someone else has been able to bring their vision to it to make it better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sometimes it's like you said, like it's not what you envisioned, but it's better because it's not something you even thought of.
Mm-hmm.
It's something that someone else. Hi, camera. There we go. It's something that someone else was able to contribute to it, and brought it in either a different direction or a different way. And you're like, oh wow, this isn't what I thought, but this is great. This is and it's that. The discussion around art and games is, I think, is like not a solvable discussion. You know what I mean? It's not a conversation where it's like, and we're going to come to a consensus and this is how everyone should feel and this is correct. I think it's just an interesting thing to consider about games. Like you talked about, like, beautiful games would do more. And I'm thinking, like, if you took any game and you're like, here's a version with no cover art, and here's a version with a very fancy, commissioned cover art. Those are going to do different things. And those have different needs based on whether it exists as a book on a shelf or whether it just exists as a PDF on your itch. And
so this version is being printed. The original one was just a PDF. But like, it also says a lot about how we play with one-page games, for example, like Grant Howard and the one-page games there. Like, the art is a lot of the times very scribbled, and it's because we all actually do love little lucky little guys, right?
Sometimes it's good if it's a little shit.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's fun if it's just a little bad, and you're like, that's
right, because it just. The whole point is that it adds a little something, brings you into the vibe. So you can have no art, and you can also have art, and it can be shit. It can be, or it can just be, like, I'm not saying that the art is shit. I say shit in the way of, it could just be a scribble.
Right.
It can be a scribble of something that doesn't look like the most beautiful thing in the world, but what matters is that thing is communicating something to the person that is playing or engaging with it, right? And that is why it matters that it's human art, because it's like, in that, each person that is involved with it is trying to tell a little bit of the story as they see it. And is actively talking to you with that, as opposed to take these things and mash them together,
right? As opposed to amalgam soup nonsense,
right? And AI art can look very pretty and very cool, but it doesn't tell me anything.
It's not,
right? And I think
it's not saying anything new. It's by definition saying something that 20 other people have said. Yeah. I think it's an interesting thing. It wasn't a thing I'd considered deeply until like I said, I saw someone I follow talking about it, and they were, and I was like, this is an interesting, like what role does art play in this? What, and what do people think about it? I think I'm going to ask people more about their art specifically.
I think it's a really interesting thing, because this game, as it would, the main art is the cover, That's it. There's not it's a graphic layout, less rather than like art pieces. But that graphic layout is telling the story, right? So it's not even really lots of art or like big art pieces that are telling you little stories. It's just a way of flowing through the game as well to say that, no, I don't think you need art in the way that we usually think about it, right? Even though layout is kind of a little bit art, but it's that kind of, it's a different type of art.
You don't need a nice glossy picture of like Captain Picard on a bridge. It's like, no, that's that's not what we're going for. And I think also like you said, like, you can use art to help guide intent, help guide like thought and the visualization you have from it. And I think it's interesting. Journaling games tend to have, I think, like the most specific conversations with the art that's in it, where they're trying to be very specific with the vibes and the tone and the intention, and then like you said, they get out of the way. They're like we don't need. And I think part of it is hey, we're already trying to put all of these tables and charts and graphs and stuff in here. I don't have space for all of these big picture, we're trying to get you,
It's because a lot of journaling games are very much like have a conversation with yourself, introspect, and then push out, as opposed to take input and generate. Right? Well, no. Yes, input and generate, but like instead of this is the visual path that I want you to go down, I guess. Right, yeah. As opposed to like go inwards and create and then.
Yeah, I think it's I feel like I need to sit down and read every of my TTRPG books again, because now it's like someone hit me in the back of the head and was like, pay attention to the art in the books. And I go, oh yeah, you're right. Actually, now that you say that, it's a thing I've considered, it's a thing I've noticed, but now it's like in terms of layout, in terms of like you said, like visual representation, visual discussion, like which games are overdoing it, like I'm thinking of, I think a lot of the bigger games that people will think of when they think of like art in their books of like, oh yeah, it's got all this great art in it. It's like, that's because those are trademarked things owned by corporations that are very specifically representing brand identity. And when you get to a smaller game, like everybody I've been talking to, that's not as much of a concern. They're not making sure that they represent these characters in the way that it's been okayed for their brand and the way, they're not going to try to make a movie. And so they don't need to make sure that, they have to show you this way that the characters are represented in the movie.
I think that's I think that's a really, really important question to talk to art directors about and like really discuss with them, because of course you have the piece and how they choose artists and choose or commission art for a thing that goes in a bigger book or anything else, and when they're saying, okay, well, art within a game or what does a good job of breaking up the text, which breaks the text into more manageable chunks to be read and like easier to pass. But also, what is this art that goes here? What is it also trying to say that leans into this? Right? And then how they commission it. What, like, very curious to know from that perspective as well, like when they're looking at a much bigger piece. Not just, because obviously, well, actually, not obviously, I have no idea if some of the massive companies have art direction. Or whatever. I would assume so, because they're the kind of big projects that really do need it. But what questions are they asking, and what are they doing in terms of commissioning art? And I think that'd be a really interesting thing from bigger projects to like smaller projects. Is it about brand identity, as you've said, or is it about we want to show representation within this to better enable you to put yourself in our game?
Yeah, I don't think those are mutually exclusive, but yes, like I definitely do think that would be part of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So in the Kickstarter stretch goals, looking over everything, you mentioned that part of the stretch goals is to work to get games in libraries and sort of community centers like that. And that's honestly not the first time I've seen anyone talk about TTRPGs in libraries, but it's the first time I've seen it brought up as part of a Kickstarter, part of a crowdfunding thing, is to work to make that effort and push that out there. And I'm curious on your thoughts in TTRPGs and libraries and making games accessible to the community like that.
In terms of bringing things to the community, like this game in itself is very much about a community coming together to build a thing and being able to explore the extra solar planets because of that. Like that's kind of the foundation that it's based on. And I guess a lot of my games are about connecting with each other and building community and like working together to build something. And I think that the role that getting games and everything else into libraries and gaming libraries and making them free at a point of access along with a lot of people is very much about that, allowing people to experience play together and look at things, encouraging people to look at things in different ways and explore creating in that way. Because a lot of people are like, oh, well, art isn't for me, but the act of creation is for everyone. Like being able to create and everything. People may not necessarily feel like they're good at it, but the way that we explore that is through play and our imaginations and encouraging people to be able to like have frameworks for imagination, I think is really important because it helps us look at what we have and imagine further and different. And with that, we can go, okay, how do we work together to make that? Right? So for me, access is very much encouraging play, encouraging imagination, encouraging like a lot of the things that bring us together to be able to build things. And I don't think that should be boundaried in the same way that like a lot of life is, unfortunately. And through a lot of things, I want to encourage library use, and like everyone should have a library card if you can. Most of them are free. In fact, they all should be free, but you should get one even if you have to pay for it and you can afford, like especially if you can afford to, right? Because that means that the libraries get more funding. And libraries they're a place that doesn't necessarily forever preserve knowledge, but it opens access to knowledge, right? And the ability to read wider and differently, which is why hate book bans, all these things. But and I think but they're also not just like these spaces that hold knowledge and imagination and creation. Like I was absolutely a library kid. I'm still a library person, but I used to spend so much time in libraries as a kid. Like if I'd gone missing after school, my parents would find me in the library. So I want, this is kind of my, I would love to be able to have, but like put these in libraries and open that up to other people. And I guess the world is very kind of crappy in a lot of ways. I mean, it's also amazing and wonderful and people are great, but people can also be crappy. And I think that we all need more time to play and we all need opportunities to play and like more frameworks for what that could look like. And so giving that to libraries who often don't have much of a budget to be able to buy them, and if they do, they get the big games,
Right.
Because those are the ones that people are instantly recognizable. And I would encourage this, if people are able to, is to contribute more to libraries and your local gaming libraries and everything, to not just to get more games out there, more in the framework, because I'm begging you to play any other game than because
I cut my teeth on beggar talk on TikTok, so you're preaching to the choir, right?
Like I was at Worldcon last year. I was on a panel about it, and I was like, yeah, like it's the first game that I played, like for TTRPG thing, but it's also the worst game in that way. It is not a gateway game. It's not a big, because there are more tools for it than any other game. Sorry, this is a new diatribe. There are more tools for it than any other game, which make it easy to get into without having to learn anything. However, if you're learning it from without those tools, it's humongous, it's ridiculous, and it relies on one person having all the knowledge to be able to run things and then assist you with it. Whilst a lot of other games, I like that a lot of other games are accessible and right in front of you, and very much we can pick this up and go. Not me, even with D&D Beyond, spending 3 or 4 days over the phone with my cousin who lives in the US and I'm in the UK, helping him create a character for D&D and going through all of these things and being like, oh, okay, so this is the type of thing you're trying to create, and this is how you might do it through these, but it's not quite that. And I think that it's in other games, you can be like, this is the kind of character that I want to create, and actually go with that instead of having to bodge it together.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's a thing. I listen, I'm sure it's come up on the podcast before, but if you're listening to this, you're probably familiar with me. I yell about TTRPGs on TikTok all the time. I'm always begging people to play other games. A common refrain amongst my friends and I is how incredulous we are that people think that D&D is easy to learn. And it's because it's twofold. As you mentioned, there's so many tools to help you play it. I think you said it specifically, to help you play it without learning how to play it. Mm-hmm. They remove the necessity you have to learn the rules by doing it for you, and it really eases it's a really easy to play when you don't have to know how to play the game. Mm-hmm. But also, as you said, it relies on one person predominantly. It insists on one person knowing everything and making that scenario so much easier for 5 to 6 people. That the thing is the thing. I've seen my friends say this. I know I've said this a few times. If people were just honest about the difficulty that it takes to learn it, how difficult in terms of rules and all of this it actually was, we could be having much more helpful conversations. Yeah. Because part of what got me to start doing this podcast was, man, it would be cool if there were more people talking about games that aren't not even just D&D, the 3 to 5 games you always hear people talk about. And it's to say I like Paizo. I'm a Pathfinder guy. Also not Pathfinder. I would also somebody asked me, I was like,
they're all built on the war games and on backgrounds that are questionable by I guess by today's moral standards, but honestly, it's very much it's built on a lot of stuff that you cannot get away from. And so when you have the question of how do we fix this game, you don't, because doing that would make it not that game. What you could do is play something that is built from the ground up to focus and explore the things that you want to explore without all of that baggage, right?
Somebody asked me once, like, you know, like, because I was like, oh, please play anything other than D&D, and they were like, so you'd be happy if everybody played Pathfinder? I was like, I would be a step happier if tomorrow everyone started playing Pathfinder, and then I would immediately then start telling you about all the other games you could play. I'm like, yes, I would love it if everybody stopped playing the worst game by the huge billion-dollar corporation and instead played the game that was ostensibly the same thing, but in a font that was at least more inclusive of people of different bodies and different sexual orientations and different, you know, different skin tones. Yeah, that would be cool. But also, I would then immediately still tell you should play other games.
Yeah. Right. But also, I think in terms of a gateway game, I think the best gateway game is the one that is easy and quick to get to the table, that you don't have to build in some random years or however much time to get there. The gateway game is the game that you can go, oh, I want to play a game, get the game and go and play like straight away without having to build too much into it. And I think that is a way better way of getting people into gaming. So like I want to include things that, like, getting stuff like that into libraries, which makes, I think, play accessible, because you don't feel like you have to work to play. Right? You don't have to, you can just play.
And it's why I wrote this question down, because like in all of the times like seeing people talk about Kickstarters or making games or making, you know, play more accessible, as you said, or reaching new people, whatever, I've never heard anybody talk about libraries. I've never heard anybody talk specifically about getting there. I mean, I have in one very specific instance that I will disclude, because it was the one specific instance where they were explicitly talking about it. But in terms of, like, you know, a smaller, you know, say what it is, a smaller creator, solo creator working for something on Kickstarter, that's something that they made completely, is just like, I want my game to be in a library. I want my game to be accessible to people, like you said, like accessible in a way outside of cost. You know, that you can walk into the library and you can find my game and you could play it and you could be inspired and you could find a new thing. And it was, I was so struck by that being included as a Kickstarter stretch goal. Like, yeah, we want to reach this point to be able to provide copies to libraries. I'm shocked that I haven't heard that come up, or I haven't heard more people talk about it. Even
I guess there's a certain amount of it being like, I want my games in a library. it feels very like, oh, what am I trying to say about myself that I deserve to be in a library? But also I think we need to break down that barrier, because the library is for everybody.
Right.
And on that whole, like, yes, there are books and everything else that are curated in collections and everything else, but the whole point of libraries, which or at least I think, is the fact that they are accessible to everybody. They don't turn people away. They give people access to knowledge, access to a third space. Because they don't just do like book lending. They also have community events. They also run other things. There are spaces that people that maybe don't have anywhere else can go and just be warm and engage with the books and step out of, for me, it was very much like stepping out of me and exploring all the different worlds that I got to read in books. Right? Because none of it made sense, so like, let's explore all of it, if you know what I mean. And I think that part of it is also the fact that I want to work to keep libraries here, and so I want to keep encouraging people to engage with libraries. So that's another reason that it's in the Kickstarter, not just because it's about making it accessible, but it's also like, yeah, libraries are a thing. And yes, there are libraries that do have gaming collections. They need help to expand them. Right? And no, you can't just donate every like random thing that you no longer want, but you can work with them to increase their budget to get games that people want to play, or like look at other games that would be good for them to be accessible to people. And also go and engage with your library and make sure they get more funding.
While you're in there talking to them about how they should have games, do some stuff.
Yeah. Get a library card. Take out a book. Like, everyone being like, oh, books and everything shouldn't cost money. It's like, that's what libraries are for.
Right, guess what?
That's what libraries are for.
Good news. Good news, person who thinks books shouldn't cost money. We solved that one.
Yeah.
We did it.
Mm-hmm. We did it. We made it accessible to you.
And that's why they want to take them away from you, because we solved it already.
Yes. And it gets into everything is political, but it gets into the fact that education is changing and is being gatekept. And like, yes, there is some level of like libraries being forced to censor and everything else, but being able to go and access that in whatever form, access knowledge and everything else, and learn about different worlds through fantasy, through sci-fi, and look at the way that people have read things, the different influences they've put into things, like from other people's minds, and like like how it's built from their own experience or the stories that they have heard, and being able to connect with them, yourself, and the wider world around you, I think it's fantastic and also really important, because I think we need to both think small and stop thinking so small. Think about how all of it is connected, and how like the little things that we can do here can also influence things elsewhere, and how we can make waves in that way, right? And being able to access all of that is what I think helps you do that. That is my very long ramble about libraries and why I have library copies in my game.
No, that's great. And honestly, I think I'm gonna probably start poking some people about how they could get their stuff in libraries. Just start telling people, hey, you should get make sure your stuff is in a library. If it isn't, look into that. See
you
see
also need to make sure that it has an ISBN. To get into a library,
that's true. Yes, it does have to have an ISBN. Yeah, they won't take any old random thing. But there's more than a couple people I could talk to about putting their stuff in libraries. Yeah. Lola, it's been an absolute blast to talk to you. I could do this forever. You're wonderful. We have our last question. So I call this the 3 question. On the first episode, I came up with a like, what are your favorite 3 question as just like a silly way to end it. And we had such a good time. I did it in the next one, and so now it's just the thing that I do. So Lola, what are this? Then you might need to take a minute for this one. This is what are your 3 favorite planets that aren't in the solar system?
My 3 favorite plants.
Your 3 favorite planets.
Planets. Ah, okay.
Now we can also take stars. We also, because there's way more stars than there are planets.
So I'm gonna be very, very. I picked a couple of different planets. To draw.
Great, we're ready. This is fantastic.
For things, so I'm gonna pick those as my favorites.
No, that's great. No.
And I can tell you them.
I love
just a second.
I love that this was unintentionally like prepared. I love that you were I was like they won't this'll trip them up. They'll have to think about it. No. I'm right here. I'm ready. This is it. I love that.
Well, it's only because as part of the building a ship together thing, I made a bit of a progress tracker, like community goal, star map type. Not necessarily a star map, but like a little map of things that we can follow. And then I was like, okay, so we're gonna color these in. And then I'm like, okay, but what if? But what if I looked at extrasolar planets and decided to make these each modeled after an extrasolar planet. Right? So I did that.
I've known you for 2.5 hours, and I absolutely believe that. I can absolutely see that train of thought.
Yes. Was it the ADHD? What draw you?
I think it was the 10 minutes you were talking about how cool the library was. That really helped.
I love learning things, and I love being able to start on a topic and go, this thing. I am a nightmare. Not a nightmare, but like I am definitely that person in a museum that is like, that has made me think about this. What is this? I'm going to be looking it up on my phone so I can learn anything.
That's absolutely my wife. I love her to death, but anytime we go to a thing, she'll be like, okay, so that's what this is. And then the guy who did this also, and I'm just like, okay, cool. Yeah. I didn't know any of this.
I just like the museums should also they should encourage more learning. That's the whole point of them. It's not just to be static. But yes, so sorry, I was looking up planets. I was looking up the planets that I use for this. So we've got that they're all really random.
No particular order. No random.
There's HD 189733b.
Okay.
Which is a giant planet that looks like which is 64 light years from Earth, and it has kind of the visuals on the NASA website of their the different extrasolar planets. A lot of them are very similar, but this one is a giant planet where it rains glass, and that's very cool.
Oh, all right.
And it's all swirly and it's blue and it looks like these are lightning storms, which is probably where the glass is in. So yeah, that's one of them that inspired the little art that I did. We only get to see this art if we get to each of the different stages through the thing.
God, I hope we get to see the Rain's Glass planet.
Yeah. So, and then you've got 55 is it Cancri E? Cancri? CANCRI space E. Cancri E. Which is a lava world with sparkling skies. These are just... This is just what it says about them.
Yeah, this was just the year they discovered it, the astronomer who saw it, and then B. It's the second one or something like that. It's just so... They gotta come up with pithy names for them.
Yeah, but I just think it the naming in terms of that, but the fact that what they say about them, or what they have kind of, I don't know, the knowledge that they have gleaned about it based on the makeup from it, or what they can see of it, the fact that this is a lava world with sparkling skies, the way that from orbit.
What does sparkling mean, NASA?
In terms of this, I don't know.
Yeah,
it's cool. I think it's the what the atmosphere looks like in imaging.
Oh, okay.
Right? And then TOI 3757b, which is a giant planet with the density of a marshmallow. This.
You just got to think about that one for a second. You just got to...
How do you have a planet with the density of a marshmallow?
And you know what? I want to know immediately how they know that it has that density. How do you know? What did we do? Because I know some of them, they can shoot lasers and stuff at it and different kind of radio waves and get different things. It's what did we do? What did we do to it?
Especially, this one is 591 light years from Earth.
That's so far away.
Right?
That's so far away.
Okay, so 64 light years away from Earth is ridiculously far away. 591.
How do we even know that planet exists? That planet could be gone. We wouldn't know.
Exactly. But yes, so those are some of my...
This is great. God, this was a good answer. This is so much of a better answer than I was expecting.
But yes, I encourage everyone to like. Yeah, there's a lot of things about NAFTA that aren't the best, right? But like, I think this is also part of the like. I want to encourage you to be like, okay, this is a completely different world that doesn't look anything or work in the same way that ours does. Make it.
Yeah, at any point during the interview,
a giant planet with a density of marshmallow.
At no point in the interview did I consider a planet with the density of a marshmallow. And
right?
and then to be told that not only is it like it exists. No, that planet already exists. That's not a made up thing.
It could be. We don't know.
That's ridiculous. Yeah. That's ridiculous. Space is cool.
Yes, it is.
Space is cool.
Also, the sea is cool.
No, but, the sea is terrifying. The sea is horrifying. We should never go to the sea. We should never go in the ocean.
No. We should encourage people that have a lot more money than we do to go to the sea.
Very specific people should be allowed to go to the sea.
I think we should definitely learn about it. I don't think we should disturb it too much.
Other people other than me can go down there. People who aren't me, have a good time. I'll be up here.
Yeah. But yes, those are my 3 things, and otherwise I'm doing the thing where I'm like, hey, yeah. So again, I've been Lola. Very weird, very often going off on a tangent. But yes,
I've loved it. This has been a fantastic chat. Thank you so much for spending the time. Before we wrap up, I'm gonna give you one last chance at the end, just for people to if you want to plug anything, give any websites, anything like that. Again, because I probably said this at the top, all the links to everything, all of Lola's games and websites, all of that, all the links will be in the show notes. So you can click through there. Everything will be there. But also just so that it can be said one more time, Lola, whatever you want to say, whatever you want to plug.
Yeah, so depending on when you're hearing this, you may or may not be able to get the game on Kickstarter. But yeah, so I've mostly been talking about Universe at Your Door, The Traveller in this. And that you can find by searching for Universe at Your Door, The Traveller on Kickstarter, or by going to tinyurl.com/universe travel. Otherwise, you can find me on most socials, including Blue Sky, under thirdvoltyarns.com, like at thirdvoltyarns.com, because that's where I make yarn and sell yarn, and I design knitting patterns and do weird, fun things with pointy sticks and string. Very pretty string, if I say so myself. As well as, if you want to find my other games, which is probably more of what you're looking for, they will be under Johnson O'Fair at .itch.io.
So you never know. You never know when someone's new favorite hobby is going to crop up.
I mean, the crossover is already there, so you know.
But again, Lola, thank you so much for taking time during this stressful lead up to the Kickstarter launch. I wish you all the best. But this is where we're going to leave it. Lola, go ahead, say goodbye to everybody.
Bye. I hope that you have enjoyed going down the rabbit holes with me. Or black holes? Maybe not black holes because we're still here, but yes. And thank you for having me. Thank you for watching.
No, it was fantastic. And that's it. Another episode in the bag. I want to thank Lola again so much for making time to chat with me. The time before Kickstarter is arguably so stressful, so much work going on. I really appreciate Lola and everybody taking time to chat, to talk with me, and by extension, all of you. Again, all the links for Universe at Your Door, The Traveller will be in the show notes, including everything we talk about, all of Lola's socials, anything you could possibly want, linked in the show notes. If you're more of a visual person, you'd like to watch these episodes as well as listen to them, $5 over at Patreon get you access to all of the video versions of these episodes. Thank you to everybody that's been listening to the show. It's been amazing. People have been so fantastic about, taking time to listen to the show, give me feedback, to tell me that they enjoyed it, all that. I'm about to start a big run of interviews, so I'm really excited to just get these out here and hope everybody will enjoy them. As always, if you have any feedback for the show, anything you want me to change, add, remove, anything like that, feedback@mattcalder.com. You can let me know your thoughts. Please review the show, all that good stuff. Links to the socials are in the show notes, all that good stuff. You got to say all the things, right? Because what is it? 10% of people hear you when you say the thing, and actually 7% of the people then go do the thing. I don't know. Whatever. Click the links. Blue Sky and Instagram. We're there. Patreon. Do it. Okay. I'm going to go work on the other episodes until the next one. Have a good one.